Welcome to Sex in the News, which is a new video/podcast that we're doing. And I thought I would start by introducing what we are. This concept came out of my teaching. I teach a graduate human sexuality course at Moravian University. And when I started teaching that course, I had students bring in things that they saw in the news related to sex and sexuality. And it just became this thing we started every class with called Sex in the News. And we'd start and talk about whatever topics came up in the news clippings that they brought. And it was kind of a fun way to introduce the topic of sex and sexuality and how it actually is interwoven into our daily life. So as something to work through our therapeutic burnout, my dear colleague and I are going to bring you Sex in the News as a video/podcast where we take news events that are happening in the world and kind of break them down in terms of not just to talk about the news events, but to really break them down in terms of pieces of sex and sexuality and what we do. So I am Dr. Jennifer Weeks. I am the owner and director of Sexual Addiction Treatment Services. We are an outpatient program in Pennsylvania where we work with problematic sexual behavior as well as individuals who sexually offend. So my hope and my goal is to take things in the news and to give them an educational spin where we can talk about the work that we do and educate and inform people of the things that are going on. And I am pleased to have my dear colleague, Eli Irving, here, who we're always sending news clips to each other and check this out and see what's going on. So he was the perfect person to join me to do this kind of podcast or interview. And I will let him introduce himself now.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Elijah Irving, or I go by Eli, and I am one of the colleagues of Dr. Jennifer Weeks, and I am the founder of Caraway Counseling, and we both have very similar interests when it comes to the things that go on in the world, and especially when it relates to the work that we do. When we serve the sexual offending population, or even just the sex and porn, the addict population as well. And there's how society deals with that. And then what we as treatment providers see when we feel through the weeds of what society says versus the reality of dealing with these populations. So hopefully you guys tune in and you guys enjoy the content and keep listening.
And I'm going to put a plug in that Eli didn't do. He is very much a movie aficionado and is always looking at sort of what movies, particularly horror movies, but other movies as well, how they are really an expression of the psyche of human beings. And so I'm sure throughout this, we are going to hear movie references and just him bringing in some great insight as to how we portray these psychological issues in culture and pop culture and in media and movies. So welcome.